আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আজকে জেনেটিক মেডিকেল ইউনিভার্সিটিতে আমাদের সাথে আছেন ডক্টর আফিয়া শারমিন মায়া ম্যাডাম, এমবিবিএস, এফসিপিএস, গাইনি অ্যান্ড অবজি। ম্যাম বর্তমানে ফিটো ম্যাটার্নাল মেডিসিন ডিপার্টমেন্ট, বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিব মেডিকেল ইউনিভার্সিটিতে ফেলো স্টুডেন্ট হিসেবে কর্মরত আছেন। ম্যাম আজকে আমাদের সাথে ডায়াবেটিস ইন প্রেগন্যান্সি এই টপিকটি নিয়ে আলোচনা করবেন। ম্যামকে অনুরোধ করব ম্যামের গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ক্লাসটি শুরু করার জন্য।
ধন্যবাদ স্পর্শ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম সবাইকে আমার পক্ষ থেকে অশেষ অশেষ ধন্যবাদ। এটি একটি শোকের মাস। আমরা শোকাহত আমাদের জাতির জনকের প্রতি শ্রদ্ধা জানিয়ে আমরা আজকে প্রোগ্রামটি শুরু করছি। আজকের বিষয় হচ্ছে ডায়াবেটিস ইন প্রেগন্যান্সি। প্রেগন্যান্সি নর্মাল কন্ডিশন যেটা আমরা বলি সেটা একটা ফিজিওলজিক্যাল কন্ডিশন, এটা কিন্তু কোনো প্যাথোলজি না। কিন্তু এই প্রেগন্যান্সিতে যখন কোনো ঝুঁকি বা অন্যান্য অসুখ দানা বাঁধে তখন এটা ঝুঁকিপূর্ণ গর্ভবতী হয়ে যায়। এই অসুখের বিষয় বিভিন্ন ধরনের রোগ আমাদের প্রেগন্যান্সিতে আসতে পারে। তার মধ্যে হরমোনাল যে বিষয়টা সেটার মধ্যে ডায়াবেটিস একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভূমিকা রাখে, অর্থাৎ ইনসুলিনের হরমোনের কারণে যেটা হয়, ঘাটতির কারণে অথবা একেবারেই না থাকলে যেটা হয় সেটাকে আমরা ডায়াবেটিস বলি। আরো রয়েছে থাইরয়েড হরমোন। তো আজকে আমাদের প্রধান আলোচ্য বিষয় হচ্ছে ডায়াবেটিস ইন প্রেগন্যান্সি। আমি এখন স্ক্রিন শেয়ারে চলে যাচ্ছি।
হ্যালো
হ্যালো, দেখা যাচ্ছে?
জি ম্যাডাম, দেখা যাচ্ছে।
Now, in introduction, I want to say that every mother has the right to conclude her pregnancy safely. And at the same time, the baby got a right to be born alive, safe, and healthy. I am Dr. Arifa Sharmin, which have already introduced by me, working as a feto-maternal fellow student in Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University. Now, the points of discussion. What points should we discuss in this class? First of all, as usual in the topics, we see that there is incidence, the definition of it, and classification. And background topics, there is a high risk factor, screening for diabetes, and diagnosis by different organizations. Others, maternal effect, fetal effect, and neonatal effect. For better management, we have to start from the pre-pregnancy. And in pre-pregnancy, there is point should be noted about counseling, glycemic target, safe monitoring of blood glucose and blood ketone, medical nutrition therapy, and glucose lowering agent. And when a mother conceives, then the prenatal condition or antenatal condition, we know about that. This is the antenatal care which has been taken by multidisciplinary approach because it's a high-risk pregnancy and it should be joint consultation with multiple disciplines like endocrinology department, neonatal department, surgical department, nutritionist, dietitian. So all of these factors ultimate aim to control our blood sugar level to outcome a favorable condition, good mother with good baby. Other point, preterm labor and delivery, labor and postnatal and neonatal care. Now, the introduction. It's a common and important medical complication which affect the pregnancy. It is associated with increased incidence of perinatal mortality and morbidity, and it affects 5 in 10 women during pregnancy. 20 million or 16% of live birth has some form of hyperglycemia in pregnancy, and among these, maximum, that means 85% due to GDM. This report from the International Diabetic Federation. Again, 1 in 6 births are affected by GDM. It's updated recently in January 2020. All of we know that in our perspective of in our country, it's a South Asian region, it's a high risk for diabetes. And there is also a session, South Asian Federation of Endocrinology Society, which I will discuss in later on. Approximately from today's, if we think today's point, there is 1.5 crore diabetic people, and among them, 70% are due to in pregnancy GDM. What's the diabetes mellitus? It's a clinical syndrome. All of we know about this. It's characterized by hyperglycemia resulting from defect in insulin secretion, insulin action, or both. Now, what is the prevalence? Worldwide prevalence is 7 to 10%. And in the United States, every year, 2 to 10% of people affected by the condition. And according to World Health Organization, it's 8.5%. Now it is 13%. In urban population of India, the prevalence is 16 to 17.8%. And Eastern Southeast Asia, it is 10.1% recently 2019. In Southeast Asia, frequency is 25% as per International Diabetic Federation. And according to American Diabetic Association, the prevalence in our country is 13%. It is 15% according to Journal of Medicine, the diabetes fact in Bangladesh. Now definition, there is a multiple definition, but all of are focused at the same thing. That means the increased glucose or hyperglycemia in pregnancy. For better clarification, I have given some area. It is diagnosed in pregnancy that is not clearly over diabetes, according to Crazy High Risk books. It also defined by World Health Organization that carbohydrate intolerance resulting in hyperglycemia of variable severity with onset or first recognition during pregnancy. According to American Diabetic Association, it is diagnosed in second and third trimester of pregnancy that is not clearly over diabetes. And according to our RCOG, diabetes that develops during pregnancy. The commonly used definition and present situation that this is. That means any type of glucose intolerance which is not at the level of over diabetes. So we have to know what is over diabetes. Later on I will discuss about that. Now classification. Type 1 diabetes mellitus, all of you know about that. Type 2 and other factors which are responsible for impairment of beta cell function or insulin action or some drugs or chemicals that may cause diabetes in pregnancy, and last of all, the gestational diabetes mellitus. It is according to the Crazy and Reasoning Maternal Fetal Medicine. According to High Risk Pregnancy 5th edition, classifies it to pre-gestational diabetes mellitus and gestational diabetes mellitus. The type 1, we all of know what is the deficiency, what is the factor. Main focus is the type 2 diabetes mellitus. There is a loss of balance of insulin sensitivity and response. Both insulin resistance and beta cell dysfunction exist there. So what causes decreased insulin sensitivity? Multiple factors. First of all, obesity, which may be central. Sedentary lifestyle, which is common in our perspective and in present situation also. Family history and epigenetic background. Puberty, advancing age, maternal hormonal environment. GDM is similar to type 2 diabetes. It is found in 3 to 25% population during pregnancy and in 2 to 13% detectable antibody against beta cell are found in women also having this condition. Now, what is the diagnostic criteria and how classify diagnose hyperglycemia according to World Health Organization? The diagnostic criteria, World Health Organization in combination of International Association of Diabetes in Pregnancy Study Group. And according also the HAPO study, we all know that hyperglycemia of adverse outcome in pregnancy. In this situation, we can say in which condition we want to say that GDM, that means gestational diabetes mellitus, if fasting blood sugar between 5.1 to 6.9, 1 hour postprandial more than or equal 10, 2 hours 8.5 to 11.1. This is called GDM. And diabetes in pregnancy, fasting is more than or equal 7, but less than 11.1. And any time if random blood sugar is more than or equal 11.1, this is also known as diabetes in pregnancy. According to NICE guideline, which is published June 2019, the diagnostic criteria, if the fasting blood sugar is more than or equal 5.6 and 2 hours postprandial more than or equal 7.8. 2 hours means 2 hours after 75 glucose. Now, what are the risk factors? According to the NICE and RCOG, the body mass index, that means BMI, if more than 30 kg per square meter, previous baby weighing more than equal 4 kg, history of previous GDM, family history of first degree relative of diabetes, and minority ethnic family origin with high prevalence of diabetes. According to World Health Organization, same like NICE, but some added there's a glycosuria on DP-stick 2+ or more with one risk factor, and if it is 1+ with 2 or more risk factor. According to SURFACE, it is body mass index by BMI more than 23. SURFACE, that means South Asian Federation of Endocrine Society. BMI 23 kg, age more than 25, and previous history of GDM, and hemoglobin A1C more than equal 5.7%, impaired glucose tolerance test, and others like hypertension or on therapy for hypertension, triglyceride more than 250 milligram, and history of CVD. Now, most commonly used guideline for diagnosing GDM. According to the organization, I have already said, thus this for better understanding, the World Health Organization 2013 and SURFACE 2015, which updated in 2018, the screening strategy is universal. And screening method, 1 step, 75 gram oral glucose tolerance test. There is a no positive threshold and diagnostic test. There is a diagnostic indices. That means any one of the 3 indices, if we found, then we can say GDM. It is fasting more than equal 5.1, 1 hour more than or equal 10, and 2 hours more than equal 8.5. According to American Diabetic Association 2015, it's also screening strategy is universal, but there is a screening method in 2. There may be 1 step 75 OGTT or 50 gram glucose challenge test. In 1 step 75 gram OGTT, the same according to World Health Organization, but in 50 gram glucose challenge test, the threshold level, if there is a more than 7.8 value, then we should do 100 gram OGTT. And the value are fasting more than equal 5.3, 1 hour 10, 2 hour 8.6, and after 3 hours 7.8. And when we can say that this is GDM, any 2 of 4 indices. According to American College of Obstetrics and Gynecological Society 2013, the screening strategy is the same, and screening method is 50 gram glucose challenge test, and threshold when this is more than equal 7.8, then do like above 100 gram OGTT, and the value are the same. According to the Canadian Diabetic Association, the screening strategy also universal, but there is a 2 method of screening, 50 gram glucose challenge test or 1 step 75 gram OGTT. In that case, when the threshold value in challenge stage is more than equal 7.8, then do 75 gram OGTT, not 100 gram. And there is a value 3 indices. And we can say any one of 3 indices when increased, then the GDM. According to 1 step 75 gram OGTT, the value like the World Health Organization. According to NICE 2015, the screening strategy is selective. That means they do the screening for the risk factors. And there is no positive threshold, and the test is 75 gram OGTT. And we see GDM when either one of the 2 indices we found. That means if fasting more than equal 5.6 or 2 hours after OGTT more than equal 7.8. Now, WHO recommendation on GDM in pregnancy, 8 March 2018. WHO currently does not have recommendation on whether or how to screen for GDM, and screening strategy for GDM are considered a priority area for research, particularly low and middle income countries. And diabetes mellitus pregnancy differ from GDM in that the hyperglycemia is more severe and does not resolve after pregnancy as it does usually with GDM. So the management approach for women classified with diabetes mellitus in pregnancy, that means severe hyperglycemia, which first detected, usually differ from the approach from the GDM. Particularly when diagnosed early, we should remember that when diagnosed early in pregnancy. But the principle of management are similar and both require referral and increased monitoring. This is the main thing. Now, when to screening, that means in which level or which week of pregnancy we can do the screening. The usual window for diagnosis the GDM between 24 to 28 weeks, because we know that actually the GDM maternal insulin resistance is found after 24 weeks due to placental hormone. So risk factor screening used in some setting as strategy to determine the need for 2 or 75 OGTT in booking. Usually they have said that between 24 to 28, but in some case, booking OGTT should be done. What are the conditions? Following are the conditions. Then BMI more than 30, previous GDM, macrosomia, previous diabetes mellitus, and glycosuria I have already told in risk factor in previous slide. Now, which are commonly, which is for our perspective, this is most acceptable, the surface recommendation, which was held last in 2017 in Sri Lanka. They decided, that means they recommended to do OGTT at first antenatal visit. So in any mother with first visit, diagnostic OGTT plus risk factor assessment should be done for all. And then at 24 to 8 weeks, second OGTT. Remember, second OGTT who were normal in initial, and this OGTT is mandatory. If we don't do in first visit, then we must do it in this week. That means 24 to 28 weeks. And again, between 34 to 36 weeks. For women with risk factor positive plus previous OGTT normal. That means the women with risk factor but OGTT normal in 24 to 28 weeks. In that case, this OGTT should be done, and this is optional, but better. The more or less same thing I would recognize that at booking, first or second trimester, and at 24 to 28 weeks. This figure should be kept in mind that we should not do fasting, plasma glucose, random blood glucose, hemoglobin A1C, or glucose challenge test, or urinalysis for glucose to assess risks of developing gestational diabetes mellitus. We should not do to assess the risks. by this parameter. Now, effect of diabetes in pregnancy. Why we are concerned about the diabetes and its effect in pregnancy? Because there are multiple effect, bad effect during pregnancy, during labor, and also in case of fetal in antenatal condition. Because if there is uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, pre-existing uncontrolled diabetes, then in first trimester there is chance of abortion, there may be chance of congenital anomaly, and multiple so on. So then I want to say now that during pregnancy there is a chance of preterm labor. There is a risk of chronic hypertension, preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is 2 to 4 times. And as a whole hypertensive disorder, there is a risk of developing 15 to 30%. There is a chance of atherosclerotic heart disease and increased triglyceride 25 to 50%. There is a chance of infection, polyhydramnios, diabetic retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, and diabetic ketoacidosis. Particularly, these are for the pre-existing diabetes. And during labor, there is also problem. Because of big baby or macrosomic baby, there may be shoulder dystocia, perineal injury, postpartum hemorrhage, and operative interference. And there is a nerve injury also may occur. This is the figure of preeclampsia, polyhydramnios. Preeclampsia increase in pre-existing diabetes, but can also increase in uncontrolled GDM. The incidence of preeclampsia, if we think, when fasting blood sugar is more than or equal 5.8, this is 13.8%, but is 7.8 when below this. Again, women with more poorly controlled GDM, this is 18% when the fasting blood sugar is more than equal 6.4, but it is 9.8, that is half if it is below at that level. Now, fetal effect. I have said the spontaneous abortion, congenital anomaly, there is increased chance of congenital anomaly 3 to 8 folds. And above this, and among the cardiac defect is 8.5% and central nervous system defect is 5.3%. But I want to say, and I think all of you know that there is a multiple congenital anomaly that means from CNS to we know that caudal regression syndrome. From CNS, there is a hydrocephalus, from cardiac defect, neuronal defect, double renal, gastrointestinal defect, duodenal atresia, esophageal atresia, which are common found in fetal medicine department. And if we think about hemoglobin A1C, when it is less than 8.5%, the anomaly rate is 3.4%, but it is increased 22.4 when it is more than 8.5. So we have to cautious about the level of hemoglobin A1C at first prenatal visit, particularly in pre-existing diabetes. There is a chance of macrosomia 40 to 50%. And IUGR, all of us usually think about that the baby of diabetic mother is macrosomic or obese or fatty, but if pre-existing diabetes, where there is a vasculopathy, if there is a structural anomaly in baby and maternal hypertension, then intrauterine growth retardation found, particularly symmetrical growth retardation, and last of all, stillbirth. Now, neonatal effect. Respiratory distress syndrome. All of we know that the diabetic baby, there is a delayed lung maturation because there is a phosphatidylglycerol delayed development, approximately 1.5 weeks than pre-gestational level, and transient tachypnea of newborn. It occurs due to delayed clearance of fetal lung fluid after birth. There may be bone and nerve injury, hypoglycemia, polycythemia. We know that polycythemia, when the central venous hemoglobin value is more than 20 grams per dml, and hematocrit is more than 65%. There are chance of hyperbilirubinemia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia, and hypertrophic and congestive cardiomyopathy. There is a thickened myometrium and a significant asymmetrical septal hypertrophy. Usually 30% cases found, but usually resolution occurred within 1 year. So there is a multiple bad effect of neonate in uncontrolled diabetic mother. This is the figure of macrosomic baby. Why this occurred? There is a question. In maternal hyperglycemia, there may be hypertrophy and hyperplasia of fetal islets of Langerhans, increased secretion of fetal insulin, which stimulate carbohydrate utilization and accumulation of fat, as well as there is insulin-like growth factor 1 and 2, which stimulate fetal growth and adiposity. An elevation of maternal free fatty acid also goes to fetus and causing triglyceride synthesis and adiposity. Now, why there is stillbirth? The common question may arise, or IUD commonly found, and we are worried about the management of diabetic mother, particularly when there is a near to term, because there may be sudden intrauterine death. So the mechanism of fetal hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia, which causes increased oxygen demand. And there is also uncontrolled diabetes, there is a glycosylated hemoglobin, which carries less oxygen. So the release less oxygen bind avidly. And ultimately, there is an anaerobic glycolysis, increased lactic acid, decreased pH, and causing death of fetus. As there is a multiple factor, but ultimate, the conclusion, there is a glycolysis and anoxia, that means hypoxia. Other factor which causes hypoxia and death. Which factor? There is a vasculopathy, preeclampsia, ketoacidosis, fetal polycythemia, and hyperviscosity. Long-term risks for fetus. Not only there is a risk in neonate or infant, but there may be long-term risks, and we have to keep in this our mind. There is increased adolescence and adult obesity and subsequent type 2 diabetes mellitus in 33% cases. And obese, 25% case there is obesity and having impaired glucose tolerance between 4 to 10 years. আচ্ছা কথা ক্লিয়ার?
Clear.
Okay. Epidemic risks of obesity, subsequent diabetes, and component of metabolic syndrome begin in utero with fetal overgrowth and adiposity. Childhood neurologic abnormalities. So there is also long-term fetal effect. Now I want to explore some, to give some explanation and the background of effect, neonatal effect like polycythemia, hypoglycemia, and hypocalcemia. Why this occurred? Polycythemia we found in the neonate. The same answer, there's a hyperglycemia, which causes hyperinsulinemia, increased oxygen demand, fetal oxygen tension, and as there is a hypoxia, increased erythropoietin secretion. And this erythropoietin causes increased stimulate erythroblast precursor cell and ultimately premature erythroblast and increased concentration of death, leading to polycythemia. Now, why hypoglycemia? Maternal hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia, which inhibit the activation of metabolic pathway of glucose production. That means they inhibit the metabolic pathway, it's an important thing, and increase glucose consumption by tissue. So hyperglycemia during labor stimulates excess fetal insulin, usually 1 to 2 hours after birth. And that's why the baby found hypoglycemic. And in baby of diabetic mother, we are concerned, and not only we, the neonatologists very concerned about the blood sugar. And we say in labor ward that means conscious about whether blood sugar of fetal neonate has been done, and there is a frequent schedule of doing this. And if it persists, hypoglycemia leading to seizure, coma, and brain damage. So we have to cautious more and more on blood sugar level of neonate. There is in neonatology departments of BSMMO, there's a schedule of doing neonatal blood sugar. First of all, half hour, then 2, 4, 6, 12, 24, 36, 48, and last of 72 hours. Now, hypoglycemia. Why hypocalcemia? And it is also found 50%, the huge amount. The background of causing hypoglycemia, there are different multiple study and which shows that there is increased calcitonin level. This calcitonin level, which causes glucose uptake in cell and blood level reduce. There is suppression of parathyroid gland. As there is a suppression of parathyroid gland, there is a reduced secretion of parathyroid hormone. We know that parathyroid hormone causing calcium balance in blood through kidney, GI tract. And if there is a low level, there is a blood level, reduced blood level of calcium. There is also decreased bone influx and hypomagnesemia. Hypomagnesemia, it interferes the calcium mediated release of parathyroidism and indirectly causing hypocalcemia. There is a hyperphosphatemia which also causes hypocalcemia. Diabetic teratogenesis. Due to oxidative stress, enhanced lipid peroxidation and decreased antioxidative defense capacity. And this ultimately leads to teratogenesis. Now, effect of pregnancy on diabetes. Progressive increase in insulin resistance, especially in third trimester. I have told in previous that the hormonal effect due to antagonistic effect of human placental lactogen, estrogen, progesterone, free cortisol, and placental insulinase, there is a deficiency of insulin, there is a resistance of insulin. There is increased lipolysis during fasting, usually found in hyperemesis and during labor, and also increased triglyceride and cholesterol. There is retinopathy, nephropathy, and neuropathy, coronary artery disease, which may worsen during pregnancy. Now, we are going to focus the main topic, the pre-pregnancy counseling. All women with pre-gestational diabetes need the pre-pregnancy counseling, and it should be performed jointly by multidisciplinary team, skilled diabetic care, including the physician, endocrinologist, obstetrician, dietitian, nurse, educator. According to NICE guideline, we have to inform about many things related to diabetes, that means which I have told previously, the effect of pregnancy, the education level, the importance of blood glucose level, and if uncontrolled, then there is a chance of miscarriage, congenital malformation, ultimate neonatal death, all of we should provide our patient or our mother. And information about the use of effective contraceptive until hemoglobin A1C below 6.5%. That is good glycemic control. We should encourage the diet with complex carbohydrate, soluble fiber, and reduced level of saturated fat. And I should encourage regular exercise and keep BMI below 27 kg per meter square. And we should increase the frequency of self-monitoring blood glucose and monthly measurement of hemoglobin A1C. And the important thing, if any patient on drug which is dangerous for fetus, if she conceives, then those drugs should be stopped, like angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, angiotensin receptor blockers, statins, fibrate, diuretic, and all oral hypoglycemic except metformin. It is by NICE guideline. And all of should take folic acid 5 mg until 12 weeks of gestation. We should evaluate and treat the diabetic complication. And women with pre-gestational diabetes and known hypertension, blood pressure should be satisfactorily controlled and maintained. That means 130/80. Ophthalmoscope evaluation done in booking and each trimester and 1 year postpartum according to American Diabetes Association. Women with type 1 or 2 should be prescribed low dose aspirin, usually 81, but in our country, in our perspective, we prescribe 75, but 60 to 150 is the range. Risk of hypoglycemia should be our risk of trauma, all of should be one about. Now, the target blood glucose and hemoglobin 1 level in pre-conception period. In case of type 1 diabetes, that means we have to keep in mind that before conception, the target, what will be the target in case of diabetes 1, type 1 diabetes and GDM. Fasting plasma glucose, that means blood glucose, 5 to 7 millimole on walking and 4 to 7 before meals at other time of the day. If we achieve this level, then can say that you can conceive now or you can try. And always we should keep the hemoglobin A1C below 6.5%. ARDA and CDA, that means Canadian Association, also target below 7%. Now, in case of GDM, fasting plasma glucose should be 5.3 below 1 after 7.8 and 2 hours are 6.4. If we achieve this, then we can say, now try. And never got to be pregnant if hemoglobin A1C is above 10%. We should hardly discourage to conceive. Contraindication, as previously said, A1C more than 10%, as there's a chance of anomaly 23.5% and serum creatine more than 2 millimole per liter or 2.3 millimole per liter. Now, monitoring blood glucose and ketone in pre-conception. Now, আচ্ছা আমি একটু এক্সট্রা শব্দ পাচ্ছি, সবাই একটু মিউট থাকলে ভালো হয় মনে হয়। Monthly measurement of hemoglobin A1C level, self-monitoring, fasting level, and mixture of pre-meal and post-meal level. And in case of type 1 diabetes mellitus, keto
ম্যাম আপনার অডিওটা ডিসকানেক্ট হয়ে গেছে, কাইন্ডলি একটু আপনার মাইকটা অন করুন। ম্যাম মিউট হয়ে গেছে।
ও এটা অটো হয়ে গেছে, মানে যে তোমরা করছো তো ওই জন্য সবাই হয়ে গেছে।
জি ম্যাম।
আচ্ছা, এই স্লাইড থেকে নাকি তারও আগে থেকে?
ম্যাম এই স্লাইডটাই শুরু থেকে আপনি স্টার্ট করুন।
আচ্ছা। So when a patient comes to us, what should we do for evaluation? Pre-pregnancy evaluation is a complete, full medical and obstetrical evaluation in preconception period by doing the following: hemoglobin A1C, serum creatinine, urine albumin creatine ratio, serum THS level, and comprehensive eye evaluation. Management of GDM intervention. We should refer all women with GDM to a dietitian and advise to take regular exercise 30 minutes per day to improve the blood sugar, and arm exercise while seated on a chair for 10 minutes after each meal. If fasting is less than 7 millimole per liter at diagnosis, our advice is diet and exercise. If targets are not met using change in diet and exercise within 1 to 2 weeks, offer metformin. Offer insulin instead of metformin to women with GDM if metformin is contraindicated or unacceptable to women. And we should add insulin to the treatment of change in diet, exercise, and metformin if blood glucose are not met. And now, offer immediate treatment with insulin. When we should do immediate treatment? When there is not controlled diet and exercise along with or without metformin. If plasma blood sugar is more than 7 at diagnosis. We should be kept in mind in this. And another thing is immediate treatment with insulin with or without metformin if below 7. When in between 6 to 6.9 there is a macrosomia or polyhydramnios. Then if not 7, then we can start insulin. We should start. Consider glibenclamide, blood target are not achieved with metformin but decline insulin therapy or who cannot tolerate metformin. That means patient who decline insulin or don't take to insulin and cannot tolerate metformin, glibenclamide can be added, though the safety data is not so good. It is recommended by NICE. Now, diet. All women with gestational diabetes should go dietitian. That means advice from dietitian can taken and should take food with low glycemic index and high soluble fiber. And 3 meal and 3 snacks should be taken. The calorie distribution for normal weight women is 2,000 to 2,500 kilocalorie, and for overweight, it is 1,200 to 1,800. And at breakfast, the calorie value should be 10 to 15%. Lunch, 20 to 30%, at dinner, 30 to 40. And snack calorie value should contain 0 to 10%. At bedtime, take snack containing 25 gram complex carbohydrate, protein, and fat. The calorie value, according to per kg per day, this is taken for SAFES, that means South Asian Federation. If normal BMI, that means a women or pregnant between 18.5 to 22.9, then the calorie should be maintained between 30 to 80 kilocalorie per kg per day. If overweight, then 25 to 30. And if obese, then restriction of calorie 30 to 33%. And those who are underweight, the calorie should be given as a 35 to 40 kilocalorie per kg per day. And the glucose monitoring by SAFES. Actually, glucose monitoring by all the organization more or less same. But which should be feasible for the patient in perspective of our country, it should be kept in our mind. And usually the SAFES recommendation are taken in our country. So the monitoring both pre and 1 or 2 or postprandial, that 4 times per day to achieve glycemic target and to improve pregnancy outcome. Daily basis is superior. After achieving target level, we can done every 3rd day. That means, first of all, every day when it achieved, then every 3rd day. Frequency will vary according to the treatment regimen. Now, for women on insulin, any of the following 3 types can be done. Intensive monitoring, that means 6 times daily. Standard monitoring, that is 3 to 4 times. And modified monitoring. It's 4 to 5 times every or alternate day until target. And when target achieved, then it can be done 3 times. So we have to keep in mind that usually we do 3 to 4 times. That means 4 times. We usually do first thing, 2 hours after breakfast, 2 hours after dinner, and 2 hours after lunch, and then 2 hours after dinner. And the monitoring by NICE guideline. They said about type 1 diabetes mellitus, that is 7 times. Type 2 diabetes mellitus, it is also 7 times who are on multiple daily insulin injection. I added again that type 2, but who are on daily multiple insulin, they should do 7 times monitoring. And type 2, who are on the following, that means diet and exercise therapy, or oral hypoglycemic agent or single dose intermediate acting or long acting, they can do monitoring 4 times daily. That means 4 times who are on diet and exercise or oral or single dose insulin, the 4 times is ideal. But those who are type 1 and type 2 with insulin, they require 7 times according to NICE. Now, the target level of capillary plasma glucose during pregnancy, same for GDM and pre-existing. Monitoring hemoglobin A1C, target level I have said, and now later on I will also show in a slide. Now the monitoring. Measurement of hemoglobin A1C in all pregnant women with pre-existing diabetes mellitus at booking is must. Why? To determine the level of risk for pregnancy. And in all pregnant women GDM at the time of diagnosis, to identify those who may have pre-existing diabetes. That means we can say that pre-existing diabetes mellitus at booking must do hemoglobin A1C to assess the risks of pregnancy, and in GDM to diagnose or to identify or evaluate that this patient may have pre-existing diabetes. And also we can monitor for risks. Retinal assessment during pregnancy. First antenatal clinic appointment, unless they had retinal assessment within 3 months. If a patient pre-existing diabetes, within 3 months, no evaluation, then should do at first antenatal visit and again at 28 weeks. If any diabetic retinopathy present at booking, then it should keep in mind that if found at booking, then additional evaluation at 16 to 20 weeks should be done. Diabetic retinopathy should not be considered a contraindication to rapid optimization of blood glucose control in women who present with high hemoglobin A1C in early pregnancy. Ensure the women who have pre-proliferative diabetic retinopathy or any form must follow up for at least 6 months after birth of the baby, and should not be considered a contraindication for vaginal delivery. Now, renal assessment. If renal assessment has not taken within 3 months, the same like the retinal, then first contact we should do this. If serum creatine is abnormal, the urinary albumin creatine ratio is more than 30 mg per millimole, or total excretion exceeds 0.5 gram per day, then must refer to nephrologist. And eGFR should not be used during pregnancy. We should keep in mind. Again, thromboprophylaxis should be considered for women with nephrotic range of proteinuria, that means above 5 gram per day, or albumin creatine ratio more than 220 milligram per millimole. This is an important thing. Now, monitoring for fetal growth and well-being. We should offer all pregnant women with diabetes ultrasound monitoring for fetal growth and amniotic fluid volume every 4 weeks. I again said that every 4 weeks from 28 weeks, starting from 28 weeks to 36 weeks. Continue up to 36 weeks 4 weekly. But I want to say it can vary. It may be 2 weeks altered depending upon the condition of the maternal and fetal. Routine monitoring of fetal well-being, like fetal umbilical artery Doppler, heart rate recording, and biophysical testing before 38 weeks not recommended, unless there is a risk for fetal growth restriction. So there should be individualization of approaching to monitoring fetal growth and well-being for women with diabetes and risks of fetal growth restriction. There may be macrovascular disease or nephropathy, which can cause ILGR. Ideally, fetal well-being not before 38 weeks. Anesthesia. In pregnancy or in women with diabetes and comorbidities such as obesity or neuropathy, anesthetic assessment in 3rd trimester is must. If general anesthesia used for the birth of the woman, then monitor blood glucose every 30 minutes from induction of general anesthesia until after baby is born and woman is fully conscious. Now, GDM plasma glucose target and treatment protocol by SAFES, that means South Asian Federation. The target and protocol in first and third trimester is same, and different is second trimester. In first and third trimester, if fasting plasma sugar and 2 hours postprandial, the value, if fasting is more than 5.1 to 6, then treatment should non-pharmacological treatment, that means NPT. And how long we should continue it? We should continue 1 week. And after that, we should assess. We should review, and if need, we should start pharmacological therapy. If more than 6.7 to 7.8 2 hours after postprandial, then also NPT and follow-up and treatment protocol is the same. But if fasting blood sugar more than or equal 6.1 to 7, then NPT for 3 days, not for 7 days or 1 week. It should be remembered that this is for 3 days. And after evaluation, then we should treat by NPT and PT, that means non-pharmacological and pharmacological therapy. And 2 hours postprandial if more than 7.8 but below 11.1, the same protocol. But when there is a fasting plasma glucose is more than 7, then treatment combined. We should keep in mind that treatment should be combined when there is a fasting more than or equal 7. And 2 hours postprandial when more than equal 11.1, the same protocol. In a short, we can say when there is a fasting more than 7, that we cannot wait for 1 week. We have to modify our treatment within 3 days. Now, oral hypoglycemic agent, according to up-to-date 7th July 2020. FIGO and NICE consider oral antihyperglycemic. Not only this organization, all of use or like metformin as a first-line oral hypoglycemic agent in treating GDM. So FIGO and NICE consider first-line approach in selective women, those women with low fasting blood glucose, since oral agents are more likely to prevent hypoglycemia in these women than with high fasting. This is preferable with low fasting women. According to ACOG and American Diabetes Association, they also use insulin preferred, but endorse the use of oral agent metformin or glyburide. That means second generation sulfonylurea. For whom they endorse it, who decline insulin therapy, or when healthcare think that patient cannot afford or unable to use it safely, then they recommend metformin over glyburide as the preferred oral agent. According to Society of Fetal and Maternal Medicine, concluded that in women with GDM, in whom hyperglycemia cannot adequately be controlled with medical nutritional therapy, metformin is a reasonable and safe first-line pharmacological alternative to insulin. Look, alternative to insulin. Now some point, glyburide versus metformin according to update. There are multiple systemic analysis done and also doing. And according to 2017, they preferred metformin over glyburide, and relating the point following these. That means those who are getting metformin or who get metformin, they are lower mean birth weight, less macrosomia, less gestational weight gain, and reduce the frequency of pregnancy induced hypertension. Metformin usually we all know that metformin insulin sensitizer, which causes increased hepatic uptake of glucose and improve insulin sensitivity, but glyburide stimulates insulin secretion. Metformin not stimulate insulin secretion. So there is a hypoglycemia chance is more on glyburide. In glyburide, the second generation sulfonylurea, there is a found in a study that fetal level was found 70%, but in that case they found metformin is more to, that means 25 to 100% in case of glyburide patient. In glyburide, no increased incidence anatomical birth defect in both groups, and maternal hyperglycemia most common side effect in case of glyburide. In case of metformin, there is a large body baby found in follow-up study, that means at 4 to 9 years of age. There is also uncertainty about long-term developmental and metabolic effect, though many institutions like or endorse metformin, but long-term data is insufficient still. Safe medicine, according to the perspective which I've already said, that use metformin as an adjunct or alternative to insulin, where in pre-conception period and during pregnancy. All other oral glucose lowering agents should be discontinued. Rapid-acting insulin analog not adversely affect the pregnancy, so it can be given. Use of isofen, that means nutrient protamine inhibitor, known as intermediate insulin, is the first-line choice of long-acting. But nowadays, the analog, that means insulin detemar, commonly known, we are known like calling the Levemir, is used and it's safe in pregnancy. But angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, ARB, and statin should be discontinued, which I've already told previously. Now, management of GDM or DM in pregnancy, the preferred always all literature or books, the actually preferred medicine, if we say the only one thing, that means this is insulin. Insulin is the best and no adverse effect found both in mother and fetus. But other oral are nowadays studied and are seeing their effect on fetus and mother. Alternatively, data some randomized trials suggest that prescribing insulin to the subgroup of women with indirect evidence. That means when few people, there is a blood glucose level is controlled, but found in ultrasonographic evidence that there is a macroscopic baby. Or then in low level of blood sugar, insulin can be started. That means that this large abdominal circumference. And the ARDA also states that metformin should not be used in women with hypertension, preeclampsia, or risks of IUGR. Now, what are the type of insulin we used? Sorry for interruption. Insulin injection are of two types, conventional insulin and insulin analog. Conventional insulin, short-acting insulin, we all know that regular insulin, Actapid, and intermediate insulin is insulator. Now, insulin analog, rapid-acting and long-acting. Rapid-acting insulin aspart, known as Novorapid, Lispro, known as insulin Lispro. And long-acting is known as insulin detemar, that means Levemir commonly brand name. And others are insulin Glargine. All are found as 100 unit and 300 unit. Rapid-acting insulin analog advantage over soluble insulin. The recent study shows this. They produce better postprandial control with less hypoglycemia. And the long-acting insulin, that means insulin detemar, can be used as an alternative to NPS or intermediate-acting insulin for basal insulin coverage. Actually, the recent protocol is basal bolus protocol. As a basal dose, previously used NPS or intermediate acting, but nowadays long acting are using. Using insulin glargine before conception and have satisfactory glycemic control may continue to use it during pregnancy, according to NICE, but usually not preferred. This is the insulin type, onset, peak, duration. Rapid insulin category B, but short soluble regular insulin also B, intermediate B. Long-acting insulin, among the long-acting, the glargine is category C. So usually we should not use, though some literature said that, and NICE also told, but Detemir has many data on Detemir or Levave, which is category B. When to start insulin? We have known from previous slide that the type of insulin and the importance of insulin. Then the question when we should start insulin. There are multiple suggestions. Some suggest insulin for 2 or more elevated value in 2 weeks interval. Some suggest more consistent elevation. But according to up-to-date, insulin is started when 1/3 of the fasting or postprandial glucose. Again, I said that 1/3 of fasting or postprandial glucose exceed the target within a week. ARDA and ACOG recommend the following upper limit of glucose level. When there is a target level, I will show later on. When there is an upper limit of glucose level or target level fail, then insulin therapy initiated if they exceed. Different recommendation for insulin. According to FIGO 2015, in women whom diabetes diagnosed before 20 weeks of gestation, if pharmacological therapy should continue a patient or need pharmacological therapy in a patient who are needing more than 30 weeks, then to start insulin. Should not continue more than 30 weeks like pharmacological therapy. And when fasting blood sugar is more than 6.1, 1 hour postprandial more than 7.8, and or pregnancy weight gain is more than 12 kg. Now, Canadian Diabetic Association, American, and ACOG. The Canadian, they also describe that if not achieved a glycemic control within 2 weeks, then initiation of medical and nutritional therapy. And American Diabetic Association, first-line therapy insulin, glycemic control not achieved after diet. And ACOG, glycemic control not after diet, the same. ARDA and ACOG, the same protocol. And what are the glucose target level? ARDA, ACOG surface, that means American Diabetic, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and South Asian Federation. The level are same, that means target level fasting below 5.3 millimole per liter, 1 hour postprandial below 7.8, and 2 hour below 6.7. All value are same in case of surface except fasting. They are a little bit tight about fasting glucose level. They showed that fasting should below 5.1. The insulin requirement during pregnancy, when it rises according to the figure, we can say that they start from 22 and peak 24 to 28 weeks, and suddenly rise then the delivery insulin requirement. This is just figure. Now the insulin regimen. According to American Diabetic Association, there is a weight-based dosing and trimester plus weight-based dosing. Usually 0.7 to 1 unit per kg in divided dose. If we think about trimester plus weight base, then first trimester it is 0.4, 0.7, then 0.8, then third trimester 0.9 to 1 unit per kg. According to Surface 2018, initial dose is 0.2 to 0.5 unit per kg. And if the patient is obese, they need higher dose. or this the dose can be calculated in the following way. First trimester 0.8, 1.2. And point to remember that 1 unit of rapid acting insulin will cover 10 gram of carbohydrate. So all of we know when there is insulin treatment, there is a risk of hypoglycemia, and also there is a diabetic ketoacidosis, the uncontrolled. Insulin treatment and risk of hypoglycemia when if we use rapid acting insulin analog, it is less. And advised to always have available at fast acting form of glucose. That means dextrose tablet or glucose containing drink we should keep in our home, or when in our official work, then always should be kept. We should provide glucagon with type 1 diabetes for diabetes, and we should need to use of it, how to use. We should instruct the women or partner. Offer women with insulin-treated diabetes continuous subcutaneous insulin infusion. That means pump, which is better for adequate control. Advise pregnant women with diabetes who are on insulin or glimepiride to maintain the capillary plasma above 4 millimole. That means if we keep above 4, then the chance of hypoglycemia is less. And how we start the insulin? If we always think about the blood sugar level, if postprandial glucose is above the target, then start short-acting insulin. That means aspart or lispro. 4 to 8 units before meal. It may be 4 to 6 units, and if we think that loading a fast and low dose, then we can start at 4 units. If short-acting insulin needed more than 10 units before lunch, during follow-up of glucose monitoring, if we found that when short-acting is needed 10, after increasing the dose when the blood glucose is not controlled, then we should increase the dose. And at the level of 10 unit, when there is we increase the dose and we have to take 10 unit at the range, then we should start intermediate acting insulin, or nowadays the long acting analog, 6 to 8 unit before breakfast. If fasting plasma sugar is above the target, then intermediate acting 4 to 6 unit at 10 to 11 p.m. That means when fasting glucose is above the target, we should increase the previous day long-acting glucose or intermediate basal glucose. In a short, we can say to control the fasting blood sugar, we should start basal insulin, long-acting, and to control the high postprandial blood sugar, we should start, we need short-acting or rapid-acting insulin. The total dose, we can say that if we calculate the total dose, then 2/3 of dose should be given in the morning. By how? The among 2/3, 1/3 insulin aspart or lispro or short acting with breakfast, and 2/3 should be NPH. And 1/3 of total dose. This is the 2/3 of total dose, 1/3 of total dose in the evening. 2/3 in the morning, 1/3 in the evening. Among 1/3, half insulin short acting with dinner and half before bed. Again, if one dose for all regimen, we think about it that for all, then NPH 20 unit in the morning and 20 unit in the bedtime, we can give. And insulin aspart, lispro, or regular or short acting insulin, 10 unit at breakfast and 10 unit at dinner. This is another regimen. According to UpToDate, they given the range per kg body weight according to the ARDA, trimester wise, 0.9 up to 36 weeks and 1 unit from 36 weeks to term. In obese women, then it prescribed 1.5 to 2 units. Again, the insulin can be divided according to the following schedule. 50% intermediate acting insulin and 50% postprandial. The figure is this. Total daily insulin, 50% basal at bedtime. We should monitor fasting blood glucose and average blood glucose when more than 90, increase basal insulin by 2 to 4 units, usually 2 units to increase. And 50 bolus divided in 3 meal, monitor 1 or 2 hour postprandial. Average 2 hour postprandial value is more than 120 or 1 hour more than 140, that means 7.8. Then increase appropriate prandial insulin dose by 2 to 4 units. Tips. 1 unit insulin for every, if we think about the carbohydrate level if we take, or pregnant mother when take carbohydrate, about if we say 30 gram, 40 gram or 50 gram, then 1 unit insulin to cover 10 gram of carbohydrate. And 1 unit insulin bring down or lower the blood glucose 2 millimole per liter. If postprandial glucose concentration high, rapid insulin should be started as a 1.5 unit per 10 gram carbohydrate in the breakfast and 1 unit per 10 gram carbohydrate in the lunch. If fasting high, then basal dose at night, I have already told. And so in current practice, those we are seeing in BSMU endocrinology department, the basal bolus dose. Basal dose means long acting, that means Levemir, and bolus short regular. Now the complication, diabetic ketoacidosis. The cardinal feature are hyperketonemia, ketonuria, hyperglycemia, and metabolic acidosis. What are the symptoms? The polyuria, thirst, leg cramp, weakness, blood fission. And sign we found that dehydration, hypotension, cold extremity, tachycardia, air hunger, smell of acetone, hypothermia, and delirium. Then what should we do in this patient? Venous blood should take for investigation, urea, electrolyte, glucose, bicarbonate level, urine or blood analysis for ketone, and for infection screening, CBC, CRP, blood and urine. Treatment. If bicarbonate less than 20 millimole per liter, then regimen should be started. Patient should be admitted in HDU and intravenous normal saline in first hour 1 liter, then 1 liter over 2 hours. Actually, these are in HDU department, anesthesiology department handle this. And insulin 50 unit, normal saline at a rate of 0.1 unit per kg per hour. If blood glucose not fall after 2 hours, then at 12 unit per hour. And potassium replacement 4.5 to 5 millimole per liter. If potassium, then 20 millimole potassium chloride should be added. If less than 4 millimole, then 40 millimole should be added. And fetal monitoring by CTG. Though I have told the glycemic target previously, again I have given the slide for easy understanding the glycemic target by different organizations. The main thing is that we must keep the fasting below 5.3, 1 hour 7.8, and 2 hours after 6.7. During labor, the capillary glucose should be within 4 to 7 millimole per liter. According to FIGO, according to ASCOG, 3.9 to 6.1. Now, the surface recommendation and action plan. The more or less had said the same thing, the human short-acting and intermediate-acting insulin, ultra-short-acting, long-acting recommended. And the thing is that data on glargine is evolving, which is pregnancy category C, long-acting insulin analog. And if woman was well controlled on it before pregnancy, she can continue it, which I previously showed that glargine is contraindicated, but the surface study found this is. Prefixed human biphasic is partly super frequently used. It is already mentioned. And approach to start insulin by surface. In case of high fasting plasma, then 0.1 to 0.2 into it and monitor 48 to 70 hours to reach the target level. If post-meal, then also the point should be kept in mind that we should follow up 48 to 72 hours and then should evaluate the regimen. The table of antenatal appointment. Actually, this is a long thing. This is by NICE guideline. At first visit should be within 10 weeks. And this visit, all information should be given to mother, which I've already told previously, pre-conceptional counseling. And joint diabetic and antenatal clinic follow-up should be maintained and approach to the women or pregnant mother. And that 1 to 2 week follow-up is mandatory for all diabetic women. And at 7 to 9 weeks, there is validity for pregnancy gestational age confirmed ultrasound should be done. And first trimester, OGTT should be done with a history of GDM or risk factor, which I previously told. Then at 16 weeks, evaluation of retinal renal assessment. If found positive in first antenatal visit, then 16 to 20 weeks, again ophthalmologist examination. And OGTT if not done in first trimester or patient not came within that time. And then again 20 weeks, there is a important, this week is important because at that time fetal anomaly scan should be done. And as there is a chance of anomaly increase in diabetic mother, particularly pre-existing diabetes, detailed fetal anatomical scan is mandatory. Particularly fetal heart, 4-chamber view, outflow tract, and 3 vessel. Then at 28 weeks, I have previously told about the fetal monitoring starting from 20 weeks, 4 weekly up to 36 weeks. So 28 weeks monitoring, then 32 weeks, particularly fetal growth and amniotic fluid volume. 34 is no additional, but 36 weeks is important because this time patient should be counseled about timing, mode, and management of birth, about analgesia, about changes to blood glucose lowering therapy after birth, about care of baby, about the breastfeeding and contraception and follow-up after delivery. At this time, patient should be motivated and counseled about this information. Then 37 to 38 plus 6 weeks. In that period, offer induction of labor or cesarean section if needed. For whom? For those who are type 1 or type 2. Others await spontaneous labor. Those who are waiting for spontaneous labor, fetal whelming should be started by umbilical Doppler by biophysical profile at 38 weeks. And again at 39 weeks offer fetal whelming. And advise women with uncomplicated GDM to give birth not less than 40 plus, later than 40 plus 60. That means within 40 plus 6 weeks, 40 weeks 6 days must complete the delivery. Now, the complication which may occur in diabetic mother, there's a chance of preterm labor in women with diabetes. So, in that patient, steroid should be given for lung maturation. And if need, additional insulin can be given. Beta-mimetic should not be used for tocolysis, as this drug marks the effect of glucose level in blood. So we should avoid beta-mimetic as a tocolysis if needed in diabetic mother. We can use nifedipine. Now, intrapartum care. Timing of birth, it is important. Type 1 or 2 and no other complication have an elective birth induction that I have told in previous slide. That means induction should be 37 to 38 plus 6 weeks. And elective birth before 37 weeks if there are metabolic or any other maternal or fetal complication. We should concentrate this line If any maternal, fetal, or metabolic complication, then elective birth should be done before 37 weeks. And this I have already told about uncomplicated GDM patient up to 40+6 weeks. And we should always explain mother about the macrosomic fetus. Now, the mode of delivery. Diabetes mellitus itself, all of you know that itself is not a contraindication for vaginal delivery. Even patient have elective CS before. If the patient glucose control is quite good or glycemic target is enough level, then I can do vaginal delivery. But concern should be about shoulder dystocia and fetal injury and potential permanent disability. It should be concerned. So we should monitor the patient if we allow for vaginal delivery by glucose monitoring as well as the delivery process. For thinking, the RCOG suggests elective CS for macrosomic fetus if more than 4 kg. Now, blood glucose control during labor and birth. During labor, the patient who are on diet and exercise, we can monitor blood glucose every 4 to 6 hourly. And those who are on insulin, we should monitor 1 to 2 hourly. We must concentrate about on that 1 to 2 hourly, those who are on insulin. In all cases, we should maintain the blood glucose level between 4 to 7 millimole. And we should use intravenous dextrose with insulin infusion during labor if cannot maintain glucose between 4 to 7. Now, during induction of labor, we must plan early morning delivery. And if labor is prolonged, supplement with 5% dextrose when glucose fall below 5.5. In case of type 1, during latent phase of spontaneous labor, glucose infusion with insulin should be started. And during active phase, insulin requirement drops to 0 and glucose substrate requirement increases 8-fold. Now, elective CS, aim for first on list. The word is first on list. That means if an OT list, then the patient with diabetic should be on the serial 1 and give usual night dose of insulin. Monitoring dose to be withheld. Patient be kept nothing by mouth, monitor blood glucose hourly. If fasting is less than 5, then give glucose containing fluid, 5% DNS solution. If 6 to 10 within, then normal saline 500 ml. If more than 10, then 5% DNS, which contain 25 gram of glucose. 1 unit glucose can neutralize 2.5 gram glucose. It's a unique that 1 unit insulin neutralizes 2.5 gram of glucose. So 10 unit insulin neutralizes 25 gram glucose. We should do half neutralization. That means 5 unit insulin should be started. 5 ml DNS plus 5 unit regular short acting or rapid acting can be given at a rate of 30 drops per minute. When we should do this half neutralization, we should give half neutralization insulin with DNS when the fasting blood sugar is more than 10 millimole per liter. If surgery delayed, then we should start basal and corrective regimen. DNS with short-acting insulin with 1/3 of morning intermediate insulin dose with 5% dextrose infusion because to avoid ketoacidosis, there is a chance of ketoacidosis and blood glucose should be checked hourly and if required, corrective subcutaneous dose of short-acting insulin can be given. Now, neonatal care. We must advise or counsel the patient with diabetic mother to deliver her baby in such a place where there is a adequate neonatal support or neonatal resuscitation skills available for 24 hours. So blood glucose testing routinely done in baby 2 to 4 hourly after birth, and we must allow to feed the mother feed the baby within 30 minutes after birth, and frequent interval every 2 to 3 hours to avoid hypoglycemia. When hypoglycemia, we should think if the blood glucose level is below 2 millimole per liter. And we should start tube feeding or IV dextrose if below 2 on 2 consecutive reading, despite maximum support for feeding or abnormal clinical signs are present, or baby will not feeding well effectively. I have previously told about neonatal, when I describing the neonatal effect, the monitoring scheduling of glucose in neonatology department, they do within half hour, then 2 hours, 4, 6, 12, 18, 24, 36, 48, and 70 hours, which is calculated from the time of birth. Now, postnatal care. Women with insulin-treated pre-existing diabetes should receive their insulin immediately after birth. And monitor their glucose carefully to establish the appropriate dose. And the women with gestational diabetes should discontinue blood glucose lowering therapy immediately after birth, because the need for insulin is decreased 1/3 in this situation. And explain risks of hypoglycemia, especially when breastfeeding, and advise them to have a meal or snack available before or during feed. Mother should be advised about this, that there may be a chance of hypoglycemia. You should take snack or meal before or during feeding your baby. Women with pre-existing type 2 who are breastfeeding can resume or continue to take metformin or glibenclamide immediately after birth, but should avoid other lowering agents while breastfeeding. Information and follow-up after birth. As you might know, diabetic of the importance of contraception and need for preconception care when planning future pregnancy. At that time, because in our perspective of our country, like Bangladesh, after discharge, patient usually not come if they are not fall on any complication. So this is the vital time or valuable time during discharge of the patient or during PNC period, postnatal period. We should counsel, we should inform about the risks of GDM in next pregnancy, risks of complication, risks of diabetes to the mother, and to advise them for contraception until glycemic control. GDM women whose blood glucose return to normal after delivery offer lifestyle advice and fasting blood glucose tests 6 to 3 weeks, but usually 6 weeks we can do this. Now in a chart we can say that for women having a fasting plasma glucose test as the postnatal test, the follow-up in postnatal test, and women having hemoglobin A1C as a postnatal test. So if fasting plasma glucose is less than 6, low probability of having the diabetes at present. Patient should be counseled about this. If between 6 to 6.9, then high risk of developing type 2 diabetes mellitus. And if fasting is more than 7, then likely to have diabetes mellitus after OGTT to confirm DM. And if fasting not done by 13 weeks, offer fasting plasma glucose or A1C after 13 weeks. Now, if the postnatal test is hemoglobin A1C, then how we can advise or inform the mother? If it is below 5.7%, then low probability of having diabetes. If between 5.7 to 6.4, then there's a risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And if it is more than or equal 6.5, then those that have diabetes mellitus and refer to diabetes center at that time. And we should offer an annual hemoglobin A1C test to all women with GDM. Now this is the reference, and thank you. Is any question? কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকলে আচ্ছা, আমাকে কি শোনা যাচ্ছে?
ম্যাম শোনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, এখন তোমাদের বা কারো জীবনে কি কোনো কোশ্চেন আছে? তোমরা কিছু না বললে আমি কি বন্ধ করে দেবো? আমি তো বুঝতেছি না।
ম্যাম কারো কোনো কোশ্চেন থাকলে কমেন্ট সেকশনে মেনশন করে দিবে, ম্যাম আপনি ওখানে আনসার দিতে পারেন।
আচ্ছা, দাঁড়াও। আচ্ছা, তাহলে আমি কি শেষ করে দেব?
ম্যাম আপনাকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ ডায়াবেটিস ইন প্রেগন্যান্সির মতো একটা জটিল টপিককে এত সুন্দর এবং সহজভাবে প্রেজেন্ট করার জন্য। ম্যাম আপনি আশা করি জেনেসিস অনলাইন ইউনিভার্সিটির সাথে এভাবেই থাকবেন এবং ভবিষ্যতে আমাদের একাডেমিক সেশন গুলো চালনা করতে সহায়তা করবেন। ধন্যবাদ ম্যাম।
ধন্যবাদ তোমাকে এবং জেনেসিস অনলাইন লাইব্রেরিকে আমাকে সুযোগ দেওয়ার জন্য। এবং তোমরা কতটুকু উপকৃত হয়েছে জানি না, তবে আশা রাখি যে পরবর্তীতে আরো ভালোভাবে আরো ভালো কিছু নিয়ে আসার জন্য। সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ।
ধন্যবাদ ম্যাম।